Hello again, and welcome back to Legally Cited. This is Jesse, and I'm back for another channel update and topic video. This time, after we do the whole channel update and everything, there's a couple topics I want to talk about, and a couple of things I want to give my thoughts on, especially with having just wrapped up the recent Season 1 of The Last of Us. That is kind of what I really want to talk about here today. As a huge fan of the game series and now the HBO series, and what that series has done for accessibility, just everything about that. Yeah, really, really good stuff. And there's a couple other odds and ends I want to mention or talk about here too. So we are sitting in Power Wash Simulator. I'm in a vehicle level. If we feel like it, maybe I'll get around to cleaning this old car we have in the driveway here. But I figured just some ambient stuff to look at. We'll have the kind of birds chirping and pleasant sounds in the background, very low. And again, this will help for in case my headset decides, hey, even though you're talking into the microphone, the headset might want to turn off. So we're going to make it not want to do that by having audio. But I've talked about that in other videos, so moving right along. Boy, yeah, I'm still just processing. I literally just watched the finale, the season 1 finale of the Last of Us HBO series, and whoo boy, yeah, it was a good one. But before we get into all that, I do want to again just give a few channel updates and video updates and thoughts on a couple other things. So as I usually start all of these update videos, again, I just want to thank people for their support in supporting the channel, supporting my work in general. I said in one of the recent videos, and even again since then, I've gotten a few really nice comments from people, whether it's in a video comment or Twitter post or Twitter direct message, or even I've gotten a couple of emails lately, which admittedly I have been crazy busy. It's been a weird week, the last week, and so I kind of forgot to respond. I try to get back to, or if I'll either get back to you via direct email reply, or I will address your comment or question in a future video. So no, I haven't forgotten about you. I haven't ignored you, but yeah, I did read your emails, and I do want to get back to them soon. So sorry about that. But again, thank you to everybody for supporting the channel. And yeah, it's still going strong 10 plus years later. A lot of good stuff on the channel in recent days and weeks, and plenty more to come. As I said, the last couple of major videos, I have my nice shiny new gaming rig, and it is working like a dream so far, knock on wood, but it has been just fantastic. It's been flawless so far. I did a video review of what system I had built. It's a custom build Micro Center PC desktop that I am very happy with so far. And so yes, I can now play whatever game I want on PC, not have to worry about minimum system requirements, not having to worry about my fan going to crap, or my machine just melting for the sheer processing of all this graphic-y goodness, whatever. But yeah, very happy with that. And I am also very happy, another hardware review video that I did recently, this headset that I am using, the Turtle Beach Stealth 700 Max. The more I use these things, the more I love them. I mean, I have used them to take phone calls. I've used them to do meetings through work or through other projects I'm doing. Gaming, movies, music. I've used them with my phone, with my computer, and they are just amazing. Um, I love these things so far. And just being able to have them, again, simultaneous phone and computer. Yeah, I mean, check out the review, but spoiler, loving them. So yeah, we got that. I've gotten a couple of accessible gameplay videos because I know a lot of people follow the totally blind accessible stuff more than they do the low vision spotlight series or other things. But we've got a couple iOS games, a couple of deep text adventures, role playing games type of deals. We have some more coming up here. I just learned of another one or two that I downloaded to my phone, but I haven't gotten a chance to take a look at yet. So there's plenty more on that ground. But yeah, there's been a couple of iOS games. Check those out if you missed those. And usually I like to space the accessible games out more just because, again, there are fewer of them. I'm going to cover probably fewer of them just because there's so many more mainstream cited games out there. But I really had to, right after I had posted a iOS video, I literally learned about a game I didn't even know existed on, was it Wednesday or Thursday this week? Might even be, I don't even remember, might have even been Friday. But it was late this past week. Brock the Investigator. And yes, it's a gator. This is a combination text, or not a text, a combination point and click adventure and a beat 'em up. So think, Double Dragon, Streets of Rage, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles games that I love so much. But yeah, text adventure and a brawler slash beat 'em up. And since recording the video, I've played a bit more of the game so far. Haven't finished it yet, but seems like it's a fairly long game at the very least. And I know people are looking for more PC games, so definitely check that out. It is a totally blind accessible game. And from what it sounds like, I've seen from the developer and a couple of other people now is, yes, right now the PC version is the only one that has the accessibility features, but once he gets once he gets all of the accessibility features fixed and upgraded and implemented and everything to where he's really happy with them, which should be very shortly, all other versions of the game are going to be simultaneously then updated to also include those accessibility features. So if you have a Switch, a PS4 or PS5 or whatever, Xbox, I think it's on pretty much everything. Yeah, you will be able to play this game accessibly on all platforms, just not at the present second. So yeah, I mean, small development team. I don't know if it's a one-man developer or if he's got a small group of people helping him, but regardless, very, very cool. Very, just the way that he's combined two genres you wouldn't really think would work together. The point and click and then the brawler. I like it, It's got some humor. It's got some interesting characters so far. And yeah, so check that spotlight video out. It is on the channel already. So there you go. Lots more stuff to come. Like I said, I've got some more accessible iOS games coming up. Not sure about computer games, but I do know at the end of the month, The Last of Us Part 1 is coming to the PC. And as I predicted, I don't remember the exact specs. But if you are interested in buying this game, as I said in one of the recent videos, make sure that you do have a rig to run it, because it's not just like a PlayStation or an Xbox where you buy the thing and hey, it's going to work on that console. especially if you are a totally blind gamer and you haven't really worried about, well, what do I need a fancy video card for? That's going to become more prevalent. That's one of the things that you guys are going to have to take into consideration more now, as more, especially AAA games, become accessible. Your God of Wars, your Last of Us, your Spider-Man, your Forza, like all of that kind of stuff. If you want to play that on the computer, you're going to have at least a mid-range video card, and decent specs. Enough memory, an SSD. I mean, regardless of whether you're gaming or not, I wouldn't even go with a spinning primary drive anymore. SSD is absolutely where it's at. So, yeah, I would definitely go with that. But yes, I am going to. Yes, I've already played it on the PlayStation 3. I've played it on the PlayStation 5. And I'm going to play it again on the PC because The Last of Us, especially having just watched the HBO series again, I just have this urge to really play through the game and soak up the game story, as now that I know what's different from the TV show series. Yeah, I kind of want to experience it again from a totally different perspective and go, oh yeah, okay. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That is on, I believe, March 28th. So yes, I am going to be playing the hell out of that. And we've got all kinds of other games coming out. We've got a couple of Kickstarter project games that I have backed, and they're starting to come out. I just played a little bit more of Romancylvania. Talk about a genre blending. When I was talking about Brock the Investigator, yeah, boy, Romancylvania, a 2D Castlevania game mashed up with a dating sim. Yeah, okay, Dracula. I mean, I did cover it in a demo video, so if you want to know just what in the heck that game is about, check out the demo time video for Romancylvania I did last year. I've gotten a little ways into it, and I like it so far. I would say there's maybe not as much Castlevania as I would like in there. I mean, it really seems to be going hard on the dating sim part. Like, you're going around the castle and surrounding areas as a means to find and do errands for the prospective people you're trying to choose between. But like I said, I mean, it is good. I mean, it looks really good. Like, the voice acting is solid. I've chuckled a few times already with just some of the lines and stuff that they've used. I don't know though. Like I said, I wish there was a little more Castlevania, and I will say there's not really much in the way of accessibility features, and this is a game where I don't want to disable the backgrounds, but I would love to be able to mute some of them. I'd love to be able to tone down the background intensity some, just because there are definitely some levels that have a lot of detail in them, and it can be hard to notice, like an interactable switch, or there could be an enemy that blends in. There could be, sometimes it's a little hard to tell what's actually a ledge and what's like a background, just part of the background. So there are some visual, I don't know if I want to say difficulties, but sure, difficulties that I've had so far in the game. So I'm trying to find a place that's not just at the beginning of the game, which is where the demo was from. And I'm trying to find somewhere that I can, like, oh, okay, let me do a full low vision spotlight or kickstarted video for Romancylvania. System Shock. That remake is also out. Well, it's not out for everybody. There's a beta that is becoming it's being updated and everything, and that's really all I can say about it right now. But it is, System Shock was this 90s immersive sim first-person shooter. You got your System Shock 2, BioShock. I mean, all these games that really just you can go kind of crazy with how you want to approach situations and spec your characters and everything. There's a public demo out that you can play if you're interested. And what I will say based on that is I love the look of it. I love the atmosphere. The sound design is great. But there are definitely some visual issues that I do have with that game, which is a bummer because I really, really want to like it, but I think certain aspects of it are going to really have me struggling with that game just a bit. So eventually, when I'm allowed to, and when the full game comes out here, hopefully within the next month or two, I'll be able to give you guys a look at that. And then, like I said, there's just games coming out constantly. There's another, what's it called? Lunark, I think it is. That one's coming out at the end of the month too. That's a Kickstarter that I backed a while ago that sounded interesting. That's going to be coming soon. Starfield got delayed till September, which, hey, you know what? Take the time you need. September's a good time. Although, what is it? Oh, there was another one. There was Starfield, and something else just got announced for September. What the heck was it? Because I was thinking, oh dear God, there's like two games that are going to be really, at least two games that are going to be fighting for my attention. Oh, the Robocop game. Yes, we got a first gameplay trailer for that first-person shooter Robocop game that they teased us with last year. And talk about games that I want to be good. Even if it's not like, okay, I don't expect this to be like a AAA, The Last of Us, like super polished game. I would be happy with a guilty pleasure. I mean, as long as it plays well, as long as it's like, if it's cheesy and over the top in the dumb way, I could totally get behind that. All I want is a good Robocop game, because the original Robocop movie, 1987, I mean, the 2014, not the worst movie I've ever seen, but it is far from what made the 1987 version so awesome. The original Robocop movie is one of my favorite action movies, just favorite movies of all time. I mean, on the surface level, yeah, it's a dumb action movie. It's super violent. It's super gory. Just over the top characters. But if you go deeper, it's about Alex Murphy and him gaining his humanity back, and just what happens to him throughout the movie. It's just it's a dystopian. The way the cynicism, almost like, it's not even a parody anymore of how, you look at how corporations run things now, and like you got all these executives. It's like, oh, who gives a shit about the people? Let's just run everything into the ground, milk everything for what it's worth. Just put everything at the expense of what I want now, which is my immediate profit. There's, like I said, that movie is just amazing. I love the original RoboCop movie, and I want the upcoming game. I want it to be good. I want it to be fun. I want to shoot some dudes in the face with RoboCop. I want to use my spike. I want to fight an Ed 209. Make it good. But I mean, even before that, like I said, there's so many other things coming out this spring. There's games that I have to get back to. I want to finish Dead Space. I want to finish some other ones. There's games that I want to start. yeah, there's just so many things. I mean, and that's just games. I mean, there's books and movies and music and drums and just everything else that I want to do. And then work. So lots to look forward to on the channel. Um, Speaking of games that I don't necessarily have to worry about unless they do end up making DLC for it, I did finish the story, the campaign for Hogwarts Legacy. I know I've talked about that. I've made that the focus of a few different videos, a couple different videos so far. And so my final thoughts on it are, like I said, I think for accessibility, um, overall they added way more than I expected them to. It made playing much of the game a lot easier for me as a low vision player. That being said, there is definitely still work that needs to be done, even for some low vision things, but especially for totally blind players. Not just a little bit of missing menu narration or whatever UI narration, but most of that is there. Not just the waypoint stuff that I've talked about a couple times, but there are other gameplay mechanics, puzzles, um, some of the, well, even in, like I said, in the dungeons, once you get into an actual mission dungeon, the waypoint stuff that goes away and you're just expected to figure your way through the dungeon. So that has to be really brought back as an option. But there are, like for unlocking doors, or there are puzzles where you have to like pick up things and move them around, picking up boxes so you can levitate them and jump up on a ledge, or move a pile of bones so they create a bone bridge, or just any number of different things that are not really able to be, I don't think would be able to be done without sighted assistance. So there does need to be work, but could they do it? Yeah, I think they really could. Will they do it? Will they put the resources toward it? I don't know. I like I said before, I'm not going to hold my breath, but I could be surprised. And again, this being their first effort for making a big AAA game, by was it Warner Brothers? And I forget the other the developer, but for their first effort, not bad at all, and they can only learn from it. So let's hope it gets better for whatever they make next. As far as the story goes and everything, the universe and everything, I like what they did. I love exploring the castle. That was really fun. Just finding all the things that you remember from the books and exploring Hogsmeade and things like that. That was really cool. I like the characters that they did. It wasn't relying on, hey, remember all these characters, other than maybe one or two surnames. You had the Weasleys. You did have Phineas Nigellus in there, but that's really about it. Everything else was its own spiel. Um, where I think it got a little bit, the later you played in the game, I think it kind of lost a little steam, just because some of the missions got a little repetitive. There wasn't tons of enemy variety, but I didn't mind that too much. I mean, yeah, you're going to fight wizards and trolls and goblins and different things. That's kind of the main stuff that you're fighting. Toward the very end of the game, I actually did crank the difficulty down, not because it was too hard, but especially fighting the trolls. They are so spongy on higher difficulties. I mean, I know they're big and I know they're supposed to be, but damn, son, like it just took forever to whittle down their health bar. So I'm like, you know what? Screw this. Like, I've beaten them before. I just turned the difficulty down just because I just wanted to kind of get through and I wanted to see the rest of the story. And I didn't want to spend God knows how long on one enemy. And then once you got out into the open world, like, yes, there was a bunch of stuff to do. There were a bunch of like caves and ruins and little mini castles and things, which was okay, but it just, yeah, like I said, it kind of started feeling like just another open world. Here's a list of, six, 5 to 6 types of missions, and do them over and over and over again. Basically what happens is you finish the story, and it tells you, hey, you finished the story, but you have one more major cutscene left. You have one more major event. So you finish the whole conflict, but then you have to go to the Great Hall, and you have to, go through the award ceremonies, like who gets the cup this year. And unfortunately, I was like level 31 or 32 at the time of finishing the story, but they made you had to be level 34, I believe it was, in order to activate the final mission or the final cutscene, the true ending. So I ended up having to do a lot of just mindless activities, basically everything in your basically your mission log or whatever, your book. I can't remember the name of it right now, but you had to do odd things out in the world. You had to do some quests, you had to do some wizard trials, you had to do a few types of activities I really didn't enjoy all that much, so I had been skipping them throughout the game. Turns out I should have been doing a few more of them, so it was a little grindy toward the end, but overall, I mean, especially with the accessibility and just the whole feel of the Hogwarts universe, the Harry Potter universe, and the way they treated the blind character, the trans character, I mean, all this other shenanigans aside, I think they did a pretty good job. It is definitely one of my highlights of the year so far. So, that's, I think, most of what I wanted to cover. We did have a Capcom event the other day. Not too much I really want to comment on there. I mean, the main thing that was sort of interesting to me was the Resident Evil 4 remake that is coming out also later this month. And they do have a demo that is around the beginning of the game, kind of like they did for the GameCube version, where you had the little chainsaw demo. And it looks really cool. I don't know if I just didn't fine-tune the controls. I didn't play with it enough, but there's something about the controls that just feels a little sluggish, or like I try to aim and I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. So I don't know, I should really try the demo again. I was thinking about picking up the game, but if the demo is any indication, if I remember, they do have an accessibility menu, but there's not really much in the way of low vision accessibility. I did like that they had crosshair settings, so you could adjust the crosshair color. That was really helpful compared to the original. A few other options here and there, but as far as I know, no navigation assists or anything like that or whatever. But we'll see. It might be one of those that'll just wait and pick it up when it goes deeply on sale or something like that. So I think that's mostly what I wanted to talk about before we get into The Last of Us, the HBO series. So while we wrap up this video and talk a bit about my thoughts on The Last of Us, because boy, I thought about doing something every week, but I'm like, nah, let's just do it at the end. So I'm going to start by giving my overall thoughts, which everybody can listen to. And then if you have not watched the series and you want to, which I would say I highly recommend, then I will leave the spoiler part and a little bit more of the deeper discussion toward the very end. So you can stop the video until you've watched it for yourself. So, yeah, The Last of Us. I played the PlayStation 3 version. I played the recent PS5 remake or remaster. Really loved it, and I guess I'm going to play the PC version again. Love the game, love the series. And overall, I think that they adapted. I was really wondering what they would do for the series, but I think they adapted it to a TV format very well. I knew there wasn't going to be as much action in there just because, having a stretching out a series just so you can have a whole bunch of people hiding behind cover and, a bunch of gun battles. Like, yeah, you're going to have a few of those, but it wasn't going to be focused on the way the gameplay has to be for the game. But I thought the way that they recast Joel and Ellie and some of the way that they used other character or voice actors in the original game. You had, I believe, Marlene was the same person. You had Troy Baker and I forget your name. I'm sorry. Ellie's voice actor. We got to see her in the finale today. But again, the way they treated the characters, the way that they translated the characters from what you had in the game to the series was really well done. Since you didn't have to worry about as many action scenes, you actually got to flesh out some background of the world and the major characters all throughout the season. So that was very well done. I mean, the pilot, like just watching the way that they introduced you to the series and the world, it's just like, oh, man, I remember watching this, like the part where you're in the back seat of the car as Sarah. That was really cool. There were just scenes that were like, man, yeah, that is right out of the game. Dialogue, camera angles, just the overall vibe, actual spoken lines of dialogue. And then there was stuff that they did diverge from, and we'll get into that more when we get into the spoiler territory. But from where they did diverge, I really didn't mind, because I think, there's certain things that fit better in a video game format and an interactive format, and then there are certain things that work better for a passive format, especially when you're needing to focus more on the characters and the story development and all that kind of a thing. And give me one moment. I need to get a quick drink of water here. There we go. So, yeah, I really like what they've done with the show. I mean, there were characters that we kind of just got a glimpse of in the games, where we got a little bit more backstory on them. We actually got more kind of surprising background on both Joel and Ellie a little bit. They even covered the Left Behind DLC in season 1, which that was just one episode, but that was done extremely well. So yeah, very. My non-spoiler thoughts is that, yeah, that series was done really, really well, and I hope that they do release like a season 1 Blu-ray, and I hope they put like a bunch of extra features on it. I would love to watch like commentary audio tracks to it, just beef it up and give it all kinds of just cool special features. And then I would buy the physical media. Regardless, I'm going to also probably just try to see if, now that the whole season is out, I wonder if they will allow you to buy it digitally. So if HBO does something stupid and they like get rid of it off of their HBO Max, that I will still like technically own it through a on-demand video service. Speaking of which, at the end of the finale episode, and if you're watching it via HBO Max, don't stop the video at the credits, because they do have kind of a little behind the scenes, not really a documentary, but just sort of a finale summary, making of sort of a thing. It's pretty short, but it was cool to see. And before I go into the spoiler warning, I should also mention that this series is also audio described, and it is audio described very well. I forget the guy's name that did the voice. Was it like a Ray Porter or something? I apologize if that's not the right name. I was trying to remember it. I specifically watched the credits so I would be able to hear what the audio describer's name was, and I just forgot after starting to record this video. So, but yeah, the audio describer, he did a really good job, and I think like just the tone of his voice and just I don't know. I think he was the right choice to describe the series. So I hope they bring him back for season 2. So that wraps up my Last of Us HBO series general thoughts. We are going to dive just a little bit deeper, so if you want to listen to that, if you watch the series, feel free to continue watching. If you have not, I highly encourage you to watch it. I know some people maybe don't have HBO Max or haven't watched it yet. I highly enjoyed it. Definitely recommend it. Even if you haven't played the games, you never know. It might just incentivize you to go out and maybe want to play the PS5 or the upcoming PC version of the first one. And I hope they bring The Last of Us 2 to the PC down the road here too. But you've been warned. Spoiler alert. Spoiler warning. We are going to talk a little bit about each episode of Season 1 because I just wanted to give a few more thoughts. So, I thought the pilot was, or before I say that, as I said, final warning, spoiler, stop the video. If you don't want to see any more now or hear any more now, come back when you've seen it, or if you don't mind spoilers. So, the pilot, episode 1, like I said, I was, especially after seeing the trailers, I was pretty optimistic about what the series was going to do. I'm always a little bit nervous when I hear a game is going to be translated into a movie or a TV show. Just going from one media to another, being it book or movie or comic or game, and then going from one to another. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But it is clear that they put a ton of effort into just the whole vibe of the show, matching the game, but being its own thing, like the casting of the characters, the way they designed the sets or even the camera angles of just like, you really thought about different scenes from the games. I think they did a really good job with that. And I love how the pilot opened, because it kind of threw me off guard at first, because, you get this thing from, what was it, like 1968, where you get this lecture that is describing, like, yeah, think about theoretically what would happen if global warming basically caused these strains to mutate, and then where we couldn't stop them, we couldn't come up with a vaccine. You're talking about these fungus that take over these ants. They don't kill them, but they just control them, and they try to spread. I mean, it is eerie. I mean, it just sets off a really realistic sense of foreboding. And, especially having just gone through a global pandemic a couple of years ago, thankfully we do have vaccines for COVID. And, it's not over by any stretch of the imagination, but at least there's some semblance of normality kind of coming back. I think this show even, it impacted harder. I mean, just because, like, it would have been creepy on its own, just being a show, the game on their own. But having lived through this pandemic of the last couple of years, yeah, it hit home pretty hard because, again, like I said, we have vaccines. What if we didn't? What if we couldn't? What if the world was truly and really fucked? It's like, what do we, oh God. And now it just seems more real than ever. Like, yeah, that could something could totally happen. There could be a bioweapon. There could be some sort of thing in nature. There could be a world war. There could be any number of things that could just upend the world like that, and who knows. So the intro was really good. I liked the way that they introduced the family, the daughter, introducing Sarah. You got to kind of get to know her, even though she was only alive for the first episode. You still feel like you kind of got a vibe of how, their family was, and, their relationship with each other, Joel and Sarah. Um, got to see the neighbors a little bit more. The whole grandma in the wheelchair, and then just, that was really cool. The dog sensing something was up before Sarah left to go back home. And I knew it was coming, but every time I play that part in the game, or I see that, I saw that, the scene, the death scene in the pilot. It's just hard to watch. Like, I don't even have a family, I don't have kids or anything, but oof, I can only imagine. Like I said, that scene is still hard. It's still rough to watch every time, and they did it really, really well. So then we flash forward back to the future. We meet Tess. We meet Joel later on. The whole scene where they like, oh yeah, this kid got infected. Yeah, here, you want some food? You want some toys? We'll give you some medicine. Yeah, no, you've been bit. You're gonna be killed. So I mean, it was brutal right from the beginning. But like I said, we get to meet Tess. We get to see them trying to get the battery so they can get out of town. We hear about Bill. We get introduced to Ellie. And I was confused at first because I'm trying to remember, what did she call herself in the pilot for a little while? I can't remember the name she gave herself, but she was telling um, that she was somebody else. I'm like, wait a minute, no, they didn't change Ellie's name, did they? But no, there was a reason for it in the show. So, but I instantly liked her character. I love that count to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, no, slowly. 8, 9, fuck you. Just, you could get her attitude right away. Meeting her, you saw the Fireflies. You kind of got the whole vibe between, the Fireflies and the, I can't remember the initials of the, like I said, all this stuff is off the top of my head. I don't have any notes. I'm just going on what I remember. But basically the whole, the authority organization, they set that up really well. The way that they are having to get Ellie out, it was kind of cool how they did like you saw Joel trying to get the tickets and swapping for the drugs with one of the guards, and then at the end where they found out, it's like, oh crap, where Ellie was infected, and everyone kind of finds out that she's infected, and he can't relive what happened to Sarah, and he just unleashes in front of Joel just unleashes in front of everybody. Really, really good pilot episode. I know I skimmed over a bunch of stuff there, but it was really well done. I was really, really excited, and when I was so disappointed when that first episode came out, because I was all excited, going, yeah, man, I'm gonna binge this all weekend. I'm gonna watch this, and it's gonna be great. And then I found out they were doing it only a week, or one episode a week. I'm like, no, no. If Netflix has taught me anything, it's that I must binge them all now. But we got through it. Episode 2 was a pretty interesting episode. And that was kind of the journey. You get to know a little bit more about the infected. You get to know more about the universe. A little bit more about Joel and Ellie. I love the part when they're talking at the beginning. They're eating, and you know, Ellie is eating her sandwich, and they're talking about we can't bring her out. We know we can't do this. And it's like, they're trying to tell her, like, if you misbehave or whatever, there's gonna be trouble. And then she kind of makes that like hacking kind of like like infected sound just to mess with them. That was pretty funny. That's something that Ellie just totally would do. We got introduced to the clickers, the runners, the clickers, just the whole scene where, like, you realize that they can't see, and like they're just inches away from Joel as they're hiding in that dark building. And then of course the scene, yep. I thought it was kind of funny that they actually got Ellie bit again. She's like, oh man, well, at least if it was one of us, it had to be me. She's already immune. That was kind of a funny twist, that it wasn't in the original game. But then, of course, yeah, Tess had gotten bit, and so we find that out. She stays behind, and the way they changed that scene was really weird, because in the game, you just start running away. You're up on this upper level, and you're starting to kind of dodge and kill enemies up there, and you hear just a whole bunch of gunfire, and then you hear just a wiggle pop, and then you know that there, like, I can't remember what the exact audio cue was, but you heard the exact moment when Tess died in the game. But then in the way they do it in the series was really almost kind of creepy, because you had this whole like the that infected runner or whatever, just like it was kind of like this last kiss kind of a thing. It was so gross. Um, she's trying to get the lighter to go off. But it was a really interesting take on the way that Tess died in the series. Then Joel's like, okay, no, we're gonna go, but what I say goes, and just you could tell, Joel's just super cold to Ellie in the beginning of the game and beginning of the series, just because it's like, oh, I can't get attached to someone again. I lost Tess, I lost Sarah. You're just cargo. He literally says that in, I think, like episode 3 or 4. He's like, no, you're just cargo to me. Um, so episode 2, that was also really solid. We got to see our infected, or our, runners and clickers and things. And episode 3 is where I think things got really divisive for people. I actually didn't mind it. I thought it was actually pretty interesting. They bookended it with Joel and Ellie. In the beginning, where they were like scavenging for supplies, and Ellie kills her first clicker in the basement because she finds it, like, just basically attached to the wall and dying. So she stabs it in the head and kills it. And then, of course, at the end of the episode. But I thought it was really interesting that in the game, when you meet Bill, you never meet Frank. He actually, if I remember correctly, he hung himself in the game, and the only way that you really know about Frank is you find a letter that he had written to Bill before he offed himself, and you could talk to Bill about it, and he was, of course, not happy about it. And I just, in the game, I loved just Bill's just dry, bitter, like sarcastic personality. His section was one of my favorites in the game, just because I love the way they did the character. And I think they adapted that pretty well. Like, he was still this survivalist badass in the beginning, and he knew what he was doing. He set up his traps and had a whole bunch of guns and everything. But you actually get to meet Frank, and you actually see their relationship from when Frank falls down to one of his traps, one of his holes, and gets him out of there, and feeds him. And then they go through the whole thing with the piano and realize that they're both gay, and they end up living together. They had Joel and Tess visiting them in the past. So you kind of got to see some of that, talking about like, hey, yeah, you did a good job building up your little fortress here. But yeah, we can help you get your supplies better because this fence, this is not going to hold. Um, and then again, just their ups and downs and good and bad times when they found the strawberries and everything, or when Frank got the strawberries in the garden there. The honestly the most frustrating part of that episode to me, and it seemed really counterintuitive to Bill's character. I mean, you see him, and up to this point, he's a badass. It's like he's got the traps, he's got the guns, he's got the survival and everything. And then you see that nighttime scene where the invaders are trying to come in and take over, and Frank's coming out of the house, and here's Bill standing out in the open. There's flames all around, but he's standing out in the open shooting back. Like, dude, if you were, that did not make sense to me at all, because if you were, um, if he's as badass as you're led to believe, he would be behind cover. He would be doing something more tactically. He wouldn't just be standing out in the middle of the street waiting to get shot. That was honestly my biggest problem with that episode. And then you think he's gonna die, but oh no! You cut to the next scene, and then no, he survived. But then you see Frank in the wheelchair, and then you kind of get to see their final day of like, yeah, Frank came down with some sort of, I'm not sure exactly what he came down with, but some sort of disease or illness. And then it ends up being like, okay, he wants his friend to assist him in suicide. And then you find out the whole like, oh, it's a double suicide. Like, nope, you were what kept me going. I'm old. I'm done. Bill ends up drugging himself as well. So that was kind of a really interesting twist on how they played those characters for the series. So I thought it was pretty interesting, actually. I didn't mind it. Like I said, especially Bill being a major character in the game and just the way they fleshed out, and you actually got to see Frank and everything. And then you see Joel and Ellie coming, Bill and Frank had killed themselves. By the time they get there, they had locked themselves in the bedroom with an open window, so the house didn't stink up. But he left a note. He finds the car, and that was the other really cool thing. I don't remember if they really focused on it in the game, but I like in the series where they get in the car, and it's just something simple as, hey, put on your seatbelt. And she's like, wow, this is like a spacecraft. Like, she had never ridden in a car before because she was in the QZ all the time, and they didn't really use vehicles in there. So she had never, the things we take for granted, the simplest little things. She had never been in a car. The next episode or two where they're walking and they see the crashed plane, he's like, you got to go up in the sky, because Joel's complaining about, oh yeah, it's like you cramped and all they give you is a thing of peanuts. And she's like, dude, shut up. You actually got to fly in the sky. How cool is that? The things that you take for granted. And I've talked about that in other videos, like, just what it would be like if I could have my grandparents alive and being able to show them some of the amazing things that we almost take for granted and just complain about now. So that was a really kind of a cool touch that they did. But yeah, they find the car. She tries to talk about, Tess, and he's like, nope, we're not having it. He's really cold to her. Things still have not really gone well yet. And there we go. And then I think it was it 4 and 5, I think, were the ones where, yeah, because 4 and 5, that was the two-parter, basically, where you had this, what the heck was her name? Kathleen, I think? So they introduced this new character. I mean, I remember the scene, like, where there's a decoy and they crash the truck into the garage in the game, but it was just kind of another ambush, another encounter, whereas they actually tried to flesh that whole scene out in Kansas City. But yeah, I mean, this Kathleen, she was just, she just seemed really heartless and just cold. And, you get to the point where all she focuses on is revenge. She's like, Mo, this whole city that we've got here of survivors, no, you're following me, and we don't care, I don't really care about anything else, about how good we have it or what we need to do to survive. I want revenge. And then we find out why, because um, I remember Sam. He's a younger kid. I'm trying to remember. I can't remember the older brother. I can't remember his name. But he had killed one of their leaders, and so she want, basically her brother. So that was interesting. Like I said, I like how it wasn't just like, oh, here's a random encounter. They actually tied the humanity. Like if Joel and Ellie encountered somebody, they gave backstory to either a certain character or a certain area of the where they were traveling. So I really like how they did that. Um, and her second in command, I'm trying to remember. He was one of the voice actors in the game. I'm totally lost track. I'm trying to remember who he was, but again, I love how they snuck the cameos in. Um, but you get to see. I also thought it was really interesting how they made Sam a deaf character. He was not deaf in the game because him and Ellie would talk. I remember they would play darts in the game. Like when they had their little downtime that we were walking through some houses and things, and we stopped, and I think they were playing darts and they were chatting and laughing. But I like how they used they made the character deaf, and he used this rewritable board that he could write on. But yeah, that was kind of a neat thing. So you got to meet the two brothers, and you learned about why they were also kind of hiding out and how they wanted to get out of the city. And again, another person trying to protect their family, the one they loved. You had all of that happening, yeah, and then you end it with the sniper scene, which is a little bit different. They had it at night. It was during the day in the game, but it was at night in the series, and it was like this old guy, and it was kind of cool because it was like, well, Joel didn't really want to kill this guy. He's like, dude, just go away, and I won't, I'll leave you alone. But no. So he ended up having to kill the sniper guy, and then all hell broke loose. We had this night battle. We got our first, really only glimpse of a bloater, but you just had this massive army of runners and clickers and whatever. And then you find out Sam was bit. And I really like the way that they did the conversation between Sam and Ellie in the bedroom there, where they're writing back and forth. And in the show, they didn't do this in the game, but in the show, she tries to, like, well, we're gonna just try to cure you because I'm immune. What if you get some of my blood or whatever? Will that provide you some immunity? And no, it didn't work. The older brother ends up having to kill Sam. Like I said, I can't remember his name. But yeah, just like very similar to the game. Episode ends up killing himself because of the grief of killing his family member, and just, yeah, wow, that was a crazy episode. Let's see, that was 4 and 5. Then 6, we had yeah, so I might forget. Like I said, I'm trying to keep all this stuff straight. So the next one was when, they left after that. Oh, right. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, right. So then we got to see them making their way, because right now they met up with Bill and everything, or they were gonna meet up with Bill, and they were actually trying to get to Tommy, who had left, and Joel thought he was in trouble. Tommy, who was in the pilot episode. Well, they finally meet up with him, and it turns out they have built we got to see, just in the last couple of episodes, we got to see basically a new sort of a little civilization pop up where everything was built on hate and revenge, and just really militaristic and everything. And then you see this just pretty healthy commune style society that they had built up around this power plant, and Tommy being there. So Joel got to meet Tommy, and that was a really cool episode because you got to learn more about Joel and Tommy's background and how they got through once the infection started. And like I said, you got to see this whole little city almost, where you had like live animals and crops, you had electricity. They actually had a movie night where you had popcorn and everything. Everything was really just shared, both the supplies and responsibilities, um, and that was really cool. You found out that Joel had found somebody, and they were basically a couple. They were going to be having a kid soon, and that was a really interesting conversation where Joel and Tommy were meeting over drinks, and he's like, well, Tommy's like, well, just because your life ended doesn't mean mine has to, referring to when Sarah got killed. That was a pretty cool scene. Now they did cut out, like, there was basically where Ellie ran away, and she ended up in this rural cabin out in the woods somewhere, and that's where you met her, and Joel and Ellie had that conversation of like, oh, what? So you're gonna leave me now? And they did it a little bit differently, but it was just as effective. I think. I think they did just as well as they could have there. But where Joel and Ellie, they're talking, and Ellie um, learns about Sarah, learns about Joel's kid, that she had died. And Joel's like, no, I'm warning you, don't ever talk about her again. You're not my daughter. You never will be. Just super cold, trying to be brave. Up to that point, like, he's been having these like panic attacks throughout this episode, just because he's starting to feel it, and he doesn't want to. He's starting to feel for her and doesn't really want to, because he just doesn't want to go through that again. But then they have the conversations like, I know, what, are you just going to abandon me? Because, I would be more scared. I would just be more scared if I was with somebody else. That was a really good scene. He did coax Tommy to take her, but in the end, as they're saddling up, getting ready to go on horseback toward the university for the Fireflies, Joel gave her the choice, and she's like, didn't even think about it, just like, nope, I'm going with Joel. You got me this far. I've really come to depend on you. Um, it was just a really good episode. I really liked the way that they did that. I mean, they did leave out in the game, there were some raiders that, like, when Joel and Tommy were having a conversation down by the generator where they were getting it working, raiders should come in, and so they had to fend them off. They really didn't have that in this episode, again, because they weren't really focusing on the action as much as they were the setting and the characters. Um, but they had some differences, but it was really well done. Then we move on to winter. Well, actually, we move on to, they're trying to get to um, the university, and I love the. I'm trying to remember which one. Yeah, so I'm gonna kind of lump the next couple of things into one section here, but um, the whole leading up to winter, you got the winter section, and then the flashback, which is the Left Behind episode. So they're trying to make their way. They're trying to figure out where the Fireflies are to get Ellie to the Fireflies, and they're wandering, and they finally get through there, and then boom, Joel gets basically stabbed in the gut by this broken off baseball bat. He's super injured. Now that was a little bit different too. Like he did get injured, but in the game, I believe it was he was on a higher level and ended up falling down. He ended up falling off of like a balcony, and I think he got like rebar stuck through him or something. I forget exactly what it was. So it was slightly different, but the way they did it in the series actually made sense when you look forward to the full winter episode, because you find out that the group that this David was in, this crazy religious nut job, um, that was part of their crew, and Joel had ended up killing that one guy before Ellie and him rode off. Um, so again, they tie the person that Joel ended up killing, tied him to a future conflict in a future episode. But that was, like I said, that was really well done. I love, even though you only got to see him for a couple of minutes, I love the couple that they walked up to at the beginning of the winter episode, where you got this couple in this cabin, and they're talking about the fireflies, and like, oh yeah, we get those in the summertime. They're just totally clueless because they're living off the grid. They've lived like this forever. They know about the infected or whatever, but they just, they try to keep to themselves. They don't go, they just avoid everything, or kind of trying to stay safe, and they hunt and live off the land and everything. But I got a kick out of those characters. They were both pretty kind of amusing though. Um, but yeah, then you get the winter episode. Well, before you get to the winter episode, actually, then you get where Joel is Ellie's having to basically try to fix up Joel um, during the Left Behind flashback episode. And again, the one episode is all they really needed, and they did it really well. It followed the game for the most part pretty accurately. Um, you had, they snuck off, they went into the mall, they got to see they had the costume. They didn't do everything quite exactly the same. I love that the extra part that they put in the show where she sees that powered escalator, because again, she hadn't ridden in a car. She's never seen an escalator. She's like, oh, this is like a ride, man. That was pretty funny. Seeing the merry-go-round. Again, in the game they had the mask shop that they wandered through, but it was part of this other thing toward the end of the episode. The arcade was really cool, and it was different how they did that, because again, you've seen when she was in her dorm, Ellie had a Mortal Kombat 2 poster because she just was fascinated by the idea of the game. And in the Last of Us game, she didn't actually get to play it. Instead, it was like an imaginary thing of like she's, Riley is kind of walking her through, because Riley had played one apparently or something, and she's like, oh, so okay, imagine this, and hit this button, hit that button, just kind of almost like an audio described, like an audio description of a Mortal Kombat fight as Ellie's doing the quick time events. But in the series, it was a working arcade, and they did actually get to play the Mortal Kombat 2 game. And they even got to see some of the fatalities and everything, because apparently when Riley had snuck off to join the Fireflies, she had been living in the mall for a little while. So she had been playing it a little bit, and so that's how they gave the little backstory of her. Oh, that's how she knew where stuff was and how to play the game and everything, because she had ripped open the change box ahead of time so that they could um, have fun and play the games. So that was kind of a cool touch. Like Mortal Kombat 2 is definitely my favorite old school Mortal Kombat game. Had so much fun playing that with just a few different people growing up. So that was a pretty fun one. They did not do the Super Soaker. They did not do the water gun scene that they did in the game. Instead they did the dance thing. They did the photo booth. But they just rearranged things a little bit different. Like I said, they cut out the water gun scene, but they kind of replaced it, and they shuffled how the other scenes went together. And I think the escalator kind of replaced the water gun scene. So, yeah, overall, the Left Behind episode was pretty good. Then you have the winter scene where in the game you realize, oh crap, I get to play as Ellie for the first time. And again, that was sort of a different thing because in the game I'm thinking, you had the bow and arrow. And in the series she has Joel's rifle. So that was definitely a different thing. But, she shoots the deer. She comes upon the other group with David and them. They come upon the deer that ran away from Ellie. She comes up on them and says like, hey, no, this is my deer. Get the hell out of here. Negotiates for part of the deer for some medicine for Joel. And so while they're waiting for Buddy Boy to come back with the medicine, that's where you find out the person that Joel had killed back in town there was one of their crew. And it's like, oh, all things happen for a reason. And boy, I kind of found it funny that, the guy that killed one of our crew was this guy, and he was traveling with a young girl. So things go south there. Ellie gets captured. She gets put in a cage. That is pretty similar to the game. She breaks. I love how they broke her out, how she broke out. She's like, they were going to literally just cut her open, kill her. And probably, again, these are cannibals now, so probably eat her for food. And just before they're going to kill her, she's like, hey, I'm infected. And and then she just gets up and just unleashes the fury and takes him out, runs away. Joel's starting to recover. Ellie originally distracts after giving him the medicine before she got captured. She goes away so they can try to lure the guys away from Joel so he can recover and defend himself. And then Joel gets a little bit on the vengeance side of things and kills one guy, takes a couple other guys hostage, basically, ties them up, tortures the information out of one guy. The other poor bastard is like, okay, don't kill me. No, don't worry. I believe what the other guy said, and just pops the other guy. So he's on this stone cold, revenge mission. And Ellie, just like in the game, Joel doesn't end up rescuing her. Ellie ends up having to get out of the situation herself. They both find out about them being cannibals in different ways, and they have that whole scene in the burning restaurant. That was really cool. It wasn't drawn out as much as it was in the game, but in the game it was a heck of a boss battle moment. It was super tense. It was really eerie, really fun. But yeah, she ends up killing David in a pretty similar, very vicious way as she did in the game, and she's just traumatized herself for life. Joel in the game meets her in the restaurant and brings her out after she's just killed David, and instead she gets out of the restaurant, hacking from all the smoke, and then meets him outside. So a little slightly different there. But again, it was really well done, and that's really where you just see that Joel's just completely given in. He's like, screw it, yep, you're my new daughter, calls her baby girl, and that's where that episode ends. And then you get to tonight's episode, the finale. Hoo boy, they did another really great job with that as well. Yeah, they did really good job. I was surprised how they started it, because they show this lady and she's running, and it was cool because that was the original voice actor for Ellie, playing Ellie's mom. I had no idea who this was going to be at first, but you have this pregnant lady running for her life. There's infected coming after her. She goes into this house, this rural house, and an infected comes up on her. She ends up giving birth basically while she's fighting off this infected. And you find out, oh, it's Ellie, because she calls her Ellie. And then that's where Marlene is friends with Ellie's mom, apparently. And so Ellie's mom got bit, and Marlene comes up on her, and she's like, no, you have to find someone to take care of Ellie. Her name's Ellie. Take care of her. And that's how Marlene put her into that QZ, so that, she didn't take care of her, but she found someone where she would be safe, where Ellie would be safe. So that was a really interesting kind of origin story. Got to see a little bit about Ellie's mom, and like how Ellie got put in the orphanage where she did, basically. And then we get to the scene leading up to the hospital. And there was a really surprise that I wasn't expecting here either, because in an early episode 2 or 3, Joel had mentioned to Ellie, he's like, yeah, no, I got shot at and missed. So, you were led to believe, oh, you got in a gunfight, you shot someone, they shot someone, but you both missed each other. Okay, well, that was close, but okay. But then they go through this scene where, they come upon the university. They have this nice peaceful scene with the draft scene. Again, that was taken right from the game, done really well. You got to see some actual happiness from Ellie. That was really cool. Great scene. I love the way they adapted that. And then you find out the whole surprise. They kind of take a break, and Joel informs Ellie that no, he wasn't shot at. The day after losing his daughter, he was going to commit suicide and shoot himself, only to jerk at the last minute when pulling the trigger, and he got a scar, but he didn't actually end up killing himself. So yeah, he was basically a botched attempted suicide. Which is like, oh God, okay, because they didn't even mention any of that in the game. And then the part that they left out in the game, from the game, I should say, was they had a whole bunch of, like, it was kind of a finale of getting through a bunch of infected under a bridge. Then, there's a whole through line of the game where Ellie couldn't swim, and so you always had to get her across water. You had to get her on some pallets or planks or whatever and get her across whatever water. And then she fell in the water on this flowing river, and then you both kind of got rescued. That's how they did it in the game. But as they're walking, they chuck this smoke grenade at them, and then they take them over and they capture them that way. So it was slightly different. They omitted some stuff there, but it got to the same place in the end. But going from that point on, it was pretty much verbatim from the game. You had Joel waking up and Marlene telling him about Ellie going into surgery, him realizing that, oh shit, these cordyceps, the way they're in the brain. So you mean if she goes into surgery, you're killing her for the cure? And she's like, nope, we can't have this. He takes out the guard, kind of escorting him out, and just goes on this just path of, he just goes on this John Wick thing through the hospital and just massacres everybody to get back to Ellie. The really good use of the music from the game all throughout the series, the theme song, some of the, during the softer moments, during the action moments, and even during this scene, it was super well done. Kills the doctor, makes the other people patch her up, carries her out. And then he has the confrontation in the parking garage with Marlene. And then they're driving away, find out that, yep, he killed her, because, the whole thing of like, oh, what would you have done? The whole debate of this ending is, God, what would you do if you had someone that you truly, truly loved and you had to sacrifice them? It was either them or you sacrifice them for basically a cure for humanity. Could you do it? And, I've seen arguments for either way. I can't say what I would do in that kind of a scenario. I don't think anyone could, because you would say one thing and like, oh yeah, of course I would sacrificing one for the whole of humanity is obviously the thing that you would want to do. But if you have someone that you truly love, could be a family member, could be a significant other, could be, your kid, whatever, could you do it? I don't know. And it's like, you kind of feel for Joel. Like I said, he's building up the relationship over the series again, after what he went through with his daughter and everything. Like, you really see where he's coming from. Is he right? No, probably not. No, he's really not, because you really should get the cure for humanity. And you're kind of with him until he just, okay, boy, he kills the doctor and then runs off with her. And then if he would have just left Marlene in the parking lot as he drove away, but then you find out, like I said, in the game and the series, is like, she's lying on the ground dying, and she's like, don't kill me, I'll just go, don't kill me. And he's like, nope, no, I don't trust you. You're going to try to find her and follow her again, and just cold cocks kills her. And that was just like basically execution style. And it's like, oh boy, yeah, that just the way he pulled that off. It's like you feel for him, but at the same time you're like, dude, that's cold. That's pretty grim there. And then of course you get the final scene of them kind of walking after their car dies and talking about Sarah and like, oh, you would have loved her, she would have loved you and everything, she would have liked you. And Ellie telling Joel about Riley, and then asking the question. Joel's trying to ramble on and try to explain things. She's like, no, I'm not having any of this. Swear to me that what you told me about the Fireflies and you taking me out of that hospital, swear to me that what you told me was the truth. And Joel's just like, I swear. And you could tell that she's just like, okay, you know what? I think, I don't know how you want to interpret it, and there's been a lot of debate about that as well. Does she believe him? Does she not believe him? I think that she sees through him, because she just, the way she says, okay. I think that she sees through him. She doesn't believe him, but to not acknowledge or to not accept believing him would just be too much for both of them. So she's like, well, what's done is done. I can't take it back. Fuck it. We're done. We're just like, I don't know how much I'll be able to trust you going forward. Because as you see in the beginning of even the second game, she's civil to him, but you can tell she's just not quite the same that she used to be with Joel. But, she's just like, I don't believe you, but for the sake of things, I'm just gonna go ahead and say sure. Really well done. So those, yeah, I mean, just kind of a summary of the series, my thoughts, some of the differences. Like I said, I don't mind where they diverted and how they diverted in the game. I know one of the major other arguments was, hey, they didn't have the spores in the show series where they did the game, because you go into these areas of the game and you had to put the gas masks on. Ellie didn't, but Joel and everybody else did. And if your gas mask broke, you're screwed, because the spores would just instantly infect you and you were a goner. They didn't do that, but then in the series though, they touched on something that the games haven't yet, where the fungus had this whole thing of, the growth that would crop up everywhere. They had these strands, and it was almost like this, almost like a shared hive mind, where if you broke some of these strands, because some of these clickers and runners, some of these infected were, kind of had this shared system through this fungi, that you could be totally somewhere else, and if you break that bond, if you break one of those strands, you could have one or hordes of infected instantly pinpoint and know where you are during that breakage. And I wonder if that's going to actually make it into, if they do a Last of Us 3, will that become canon? Will they explore that in a game? I don't know. But like I said, we already have the spores differences, so the game does that, the series doesn't. The series does this thing with the strands and everything. The games haven't touched on that yet. But yeah, I mean, it was just as I said, it was a really good series, and I think it was one of the best adaptations that I've seen of a, branching off when and how they needed to from the source material from the games. Basically giving the key scenes and lines of dialogue, and the way they treated the characters was all fantastic. Yeah, but then they got rid of some of the action, which I know some people again, that was another kind of criticism, is a lot of people, they wanted more infected. They wanted to see more clickers. They wanted to see more other, bloaters and, infected. Yeah, I would have liked to seen a little bit more of that myself, just, even sprinkled out throughout the episodes. But at least we got to see them. And again, they're, just like The Walking Dead or other dystopian type of things, where you have zombies or zombie-esque creatures. The whole vibe to all of these types of things is, oh yeah, you have the infected, you have zombies, you have whatever supernatural thing is happening. But as scary as those monsters are, it always comes down to the scariest and most brutal monster is man. Because, yeah, we have a society right now. I mean, look at the way things are in society right now, where we have a civilization, we have cities, we have communities, we have like laws and communities and police and everything like that. And look at all the shit that's going down, all the police brutality, all the gun violence, all the murders and stabbings, and I mean just the stuff that I hear and see in the news every day. That's when we're quote unquote in a civilized state right now. We lose all sort of like modern infrastructure and things kind of just go back to like, you know, no electricity or very limited electricity. We lose our, the modern conveniences. We don't have just go to this grocery store and buy our food. We don't, everyone has to go back to hunting and gathering and small kind of tribe type living, and people just turn into savages. And like I said, the way that people are acting, just the way things are now, the sad thing is like as much as I want to say that generally humanity is good, we've done a lot. We've created, things that can cure people, like medicine and science and vaccines and technology and all these things. And now that we're finally, trying to make things better for people with disabilities and all these other things. I mean, I know there's a bunch of awful things happening. First it was, again, I talked about this in a recent thing where it was like, it was women's rights, then it was gay rights, then now it's trans rights, and it's just we just keep repeating the same stupid mistakes over and over, and then by the time we finally get to something like apocalyptic, like The Last of Us, you see what humanity. I mean, look at what happened during the pandemic. Really, we had most of our civilization. Yeah, we couldn't get some things. We couldn't get our convenient shopping as easily as we could. People were going nuts for things like toilet paper. But even the discourse between like, oh, the people who don't want to wear masks and want to wear masks to protect people. Just people couldn't agree on something so simple like that. So, yeah, I don't know, man. It's just, like I said, I'm still mulling over the whole series in general, but I very, very much enjoyed it. I don't normally do reviews or deep thoughts on this, but because especially the blind community, this is one of the first real mainstream game series that a blind audience has been fully able to enjoy now, especially with the re-release of the PlayStation 5 version of the original Last of Us, because they started with The Last of Us 2, but now we have both The Last of Us Part 1 and Part 2 are totally accessible to blind players. And now not only can the blind can a blind person talk about the game series with others just as everyone else does, but now we have, just like everybody else, we can watch the HBO series and have the same types of discussions, having played the games and watched the series, both just like everybody else does. And so, on top of it just being a really great game and great story, great universe in general, what Naughty Dog has done for accessibility, and then the way they adapted the story and the series so well to TV, I am absolutely psyched for season 2. I have no clue how that's going to go. And I don't know if they can. I was surprised. Usually you have a season is like 10 episodes, and I was surprised to find out that it was only 9 this season. And as long as The Last of Us Part 2 is in the game, you kind of have to wonder, are they going to be able to do that in 9-10 episodes, or would you be able to string that along for season 2, season 3? Do they... I can't imagine that you would, because it would piss a lot of people off, I think. I couldn't imagine like, oh, season 2, you're going to cut to, you'll start the first episode with Ellie and her side, and then you'll meet, oh God, why did I go stupid? Not Anna. the other main character. I just went totally stupid. My mind is fried. Um, but I can imagine. But then like the season 2 would be, you would get her story, and then season 3 you would go back in, and then you would see it again from Ellie's side, maybe. That would be just kind of weird. I don't know if they'll do like a half and half or one episode and then the other. It'd be really interesting to see how they decide to tackle the multiple storylines, the simultaneous paths, shall we say, of season season 2. I could see them doing it on a day basis, like day 1, day 2, and then going back and forth maybe. But yeah, we'll see. Anyway, this video has gone on long enough. This is definitely a long one, but a lot to talk about here. I wanted to just chat a little bit about The Last of Us, chat a little bit about a few other things here and there. So we will wrap it up here. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you haven't watched the series or played the games, I highly recommend both. They are awesome. So we'll wrap it up here. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Give it a like if you did. Follow me on Twitter at BGFH79, twitch.tv/illegally-cited, illegally-cited.com, and right here on YouTube. Until next time, I will chat with everybody again later.